I think to be aware of both,
Mm-hmm.
to be aware of the scarcity that does exist in life
Mm-hmm.
and the abundance that does exist within us. And that
Mm-hmm.
abundance for me is about that very awareness of where we can
Yeah.
still pull resources and where we
Yeah.
need to take a different route.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the material world, there is a certain level of limit. You know, and I mean, we see that in terms of how we've dealt with the earth, right?
Yeah.
And the resources.
Yeah.
And again, for me, that comes from what Jesse said earlier, that our attitude to money, it's not so much money itself at all,
No.
but it's our attitude to money. And when we come from a scarcity model within ourselves, then we put all our effort into acquiring material resources from the outside,
Mm-hmm.
which then becomes greed.
Mm-hmm.
Yo, guys, I'm gonna rumble, yeah, on that note, because I'm a greedy man. I'm joking.
Love you, Joe.
Yo, big
Hey,
love.
Joe.
Gonna hit the steam room. Can I ask you a little favor? Do you know, um, Craig's been in hospital but he got like kind of like he came out kind of a bit worse than he started. If you could send him a message, man, to stuff like with any love or anything, or just see how he's doing, I'd appreciate that because I think he's like feeling a bit. I've been messaging him and that, but even if he just got a message off you, just like just seeing how he's doing or whatever, he'd really appreciate
Mm.
that. Guys, I love you. All right. Stay blessed, stay beautiful, and I shall see you soon.
Bye-bye, Joe. Love and
Bye
hugs.
bye,
Bye, Joe.
Joe.
Love you.
Thanks, Joe.
Bye-bye.
Greed comes from the idea that we have a lack, that we are missing something,
Mm, mm,
unsatisfied with what we've got.
mm-hmm.
We unlock our true power. We unlock abundance.
Mm.
And then it affects not only us, but the collective conscious. So,
Mm.
So what's the difference between the two? How can people see theirs? What might it look like, sound like, feel like?
Mm.
So I'll give example of when I noticed mine, and here's like what you can prepare yourself for it, which is like what we're doing here. It's like, oh, in wonder, what is my scarcity default? Because we all are running it. And if you aren't, it's like amazing. Yeah, it's like, oh, we can all learn from you. Or you just haven't looked at it. It's really easy to uncover in a conversation.
Mm.
So I will assume that it's in everyone's background until they prove to me that it isn't. But that doesn't matter. It's not like I'm looking for their proof. I'm dancing with what's in the moment because everyone changes all the time.
Mm.
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 And my scarcity is always informing me.
When you're aware of it, Jess.
And even if I'm not, it's informing me.
Yes, but you can't use that information consciously then,
No,
right?
that's right. That's the awareness of it, to be like, oh, I can't do that. I don't need to do that anymore. I need to look on the opposite of scarcity.
Mm.
Yeah.
And
I believe,
yeah,
I believe it's got a lot to do with the question we asking ourselves.
Mm.
Like if we want to manifest something, we say, how will I get it? It's not about the how. It's not what we'd like to have. And then why do you want it? So, because this how it will push it away.
that's right.
It makes it
And
more complicated.
yes, because we're avoiding the resistance. We're avoiding the resistance, which means that we created, there's tension to be used. As a powerful creator, we've created tension. But then when it gets uncomfortable, we get out of that tension. So we let it go.
Mm.
And we call it an oscillation. So between the courage and the scarcity, right? That's an oscillation.
Mm. Oi. Oh.
Said between the courage and the scarcity, that's an oscillation.
Yeah.
The oscillation is in neutral.
Mm.
It goes through it. It goes through it.
Oh, it's oh, okay. It's the 0 point when you go up and then you go down and then you cross the
Yeah.
0 point and go further down and then you go up again.
Yeah.
There you go.
Exactly.
The wobble. It's the wobble.
Okay.
Yep. Same thing as the wobble.
Because it doesn't rest in neutral.
Oh no, everything's always in motion.
Exactly. And that's where our awareness is to, oh, let's start it in neutral. Let's start at neutral.
Mm.
Because tension is created between what is and what isn't.
Mm.
Or said another way, it's like the truth you think it is and your innate power. Though that's the tension between it. So and it's like when you have this experience, like when you experience you, which means you catch your scarcity pattern right in the moment. When you catch your scarcity pattern right in the moment, you got it. Now, that just means it's not like it's licked, right? It's not like you got it handled. What that means is that you've had your first point of awareness. That's what it is. It's like that. What it is your first point of automatic. Like you're aware of your automatic. And what you find is when you look at it, you find they're not true. Yet you're operating as if they are. So mine was like when I was working scarcity. And so you just kind of, you look at like, I wonder what my scarcity pattern is. And you start listening for it. So you're putting your attention, towards scarcity. And you're looking like, what is my scarcity pattern? Yeah, I just happened to find mine as I was scraping the bottom of the jelly jar.
And that was, there's no more jelly.
It was, yet there was enough for my sandwich and I had more in the pantry.
Oh.
So it was the feeling of scraping the jelly jar.
That's right.
Yeah,
It's the
not
end, it's the last. And I have like that running out is a huge scarcity of mine.
Mm. 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 But I think I mean I'm generalizing hugely here, but I think for people that are breadwinners in families, that is a very
Yeah.
yeah, it's a
The provider,
yeah,
it's a huge responsibility for the provider. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And again, because of how the outside structures work.
Mhm. Keep you stuck, you bet.
Yeah.
I mean, not to take away from the past or the experience of the past, because this is a different form of it, but we'll use the same word as slavery.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're slaves to our own scarcity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And no one's doing it to us but us.
Mm. Mm.
So also it's like there's taking responsibility for our power, for our innate power. It's like taking the responsibility for the power we are. That's not easy. It's a whole lot easier just to dismiss it and stay worried about it.
Mm.
But then we miss what's on the other side.
Mm.
And your life will inform you one way or the other.
Yeah. Mm.
Anyone else have a scarcity story
Oh,
that
sorry.
might help someone see theirs?
I completely forgot that was your.
I'm, I'm cooking, so there's a lot of noise here.
I conveniently forgot this. I can't pinpoint a wonderful example like you have, but I think my scarcity comes with my physical energy, and because there is a certain limit to what I can do with my body, that I've had an oscillation experience over the years with it. So what would happen was that when I had energy, I would go full out, and then I was pushing it too hard, and so because I wasn't dancing with it, I was pushing. And so then invariably what would happen is that then I would get ill and not be able to do much for months at a time. So I slowly started to realize that I was exacerbating the lack that there was, and not facilitating the abundance that there was. And it's been a long journey for me, and there are times where I still fall into that trap again, but it's far less often, and also there's something in terms of the abundance that I feel that is a lot more stable and available to me. So when I notice that I'm, beginning to fall into that, and on either side, like if I'm overdoing or if I'm underdoing, right? Because that can happen. You can underestimate what it is that you are really capable of doing. And of course, then there's the whole aspect of being that comes into it, which is what I have to rely on the most. And there's plenty of abundance there. And there is also the reality that I do need to work with my body. So I hope that is a demonstration of something valuable for others.
What I heard was key was you saw your oscillation. So what, again, just quick, like what was your oscillation between?
It was either being hugely active or not active at all. So it would either be sick or working beyond what anybody else was working.
That's right. So look at that pattern. And so that you would work so hard so that what, you got sick again.
Yeah. And in my mind, it was a thing of I've got to catch up.
Then the catching up was the slingshot, right? The bing back to the other side. So it was just this always like a pinballing back and forth.
Yeah.
And then you'd sit there's like, what was it that you really wanted inside of that?
I wanted to feel like I could contribute.
So that was the essence of the pattern. And it was like, what did you like? Did you get that in the pattern?
No.
Yet you kept going for it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Because you thought and you had no other way to know, but that was the way to do it. It was the only way you knew how to do it.
Yeah.
That is the essence of how gripped we are in this.
Yes, it is.
I really like we are stuck in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's an unresolvable structure.
Mm-hmm.
Unresolvable. We are stuck in unresolvable structures. We just need to change them to resolvable. And that's changing just one of the points. It only takes two or more, and we just got to find the one and change it.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. Like like what? To do that gets us out of the scariest position to be in is unaware of your unresolvable structure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, like if that is not the worst place to be, I don't know what is.
And yet, Jesse, often we don't recognize our experience of it because of the unaware, right? So we don't recognize how awful it is
Because
and
it's
how
normal, because it's just part of that is just the way life is what we settle on.
that's right. Yeah, that's
And then
exactly
so
it.
then you can see like hopelessness is in a way of giving all your power away. The
Yeah.
victim is the worst, like the not the worst, sorry, it is the lowest in terms of having the power inside of you. Victim is the lowest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we look for like where am I the victim? Where do I think? And it's like where do I think I am the victim? Where am I acting like the victim? And that what that tells you is that's what I'm giving my power to. Oh, and everybody wants freedom. That's freedom.
Mm, 100%.
A resolvable structure is freedom.
Mm.
I don't see myself with any scarcity dilemmas, or I've detached over the last couple of years from most things, but when it comes to my family, I have many attachments. Like
Mm.
I'm trying to live my son's life or actually get him to listen to what I'm saying. And when it comes to my brother, I'll help him economically because I don't really think about money. It's just something that's there. And if it's not, I don't need it. As long as the bills are paid and I got food in the refrigerator, why should I care if there's money in my account? I don't,
Interesting how you just like the only domain you applied it to was money.
yeah, it's money or whatever. I sort of
Hmm.
detached from it.
Hmm.
I used to be afraid of people when I was out walking, and I thought, why would I be afraid of people? It's not like they ever done me anything the last, what, 30 years? It was more a school thing. I saw that I had many attachments from my school days. And
Mm.
I just said, well, just walk proud, keep
Mm.
your head up. And I realized, well, when people look at you and you look back at them, they often bend their head. So I realized, well, they must have the same problems I had. And I realized, well, work with it. Like she says, become better and better. And now I'm just me being present. I haven't thought about a lot, anything really in a long, long time. Thoughts, it's sort of like, oh my God, not one of those again.
Well, then it's like rather than wasting all that energy on an unresolvable structure, you can begin to create it in a resolvable one. And you have to get to neutral first. So it's like what I hear you saying, Heinz, is like, oh, Heinz has arrived at a neutral, majority neutral.
Mm.
And then
Yeah,
you're
but
looking at like, okay, now what is it that you would want to create? And it's just holding the space for that, which is like you and Chi's fireside.
yeah.
Mm.
But I also think it's because I haven't been a provider for what 4 years, which given me just time for me.
Mm.
Something I never had before because I've always taken care of my wife and a friend or something. But
Mm.
now that I'm actually taking care of me, oh my
Yeah.
God, the freedom.
That's it's through that. Yeah. Like that's part of neutral. Meaning seeing that we are the one that's causing the responses.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think that is power when you think like, oh, I make all my choices. Now, whether I'm aware of them, that's a different story.
Mm. Mm.
Because
That's what
really,
I love about. Sorry.
like 90% of what we do is still an automatic we're unaware of. We're just trying to
Yeah.
get aware of that few percent. And
Mm.
that's where we make the change, just a few percent. We're not changing the 95% here. We actually do. We actually do. If you stick with it enough, you actually do because the good habits, the resolvable habits begin to replace the bad ones,
Yeah.
the unresolvable ones. So you
That's what I love about.
slowly
Sorry.
go, Heinz.
Oh, that's what I love about these talks. It gives way more perspective, and with more perspective comes new awareness, and with new awareness, you can work deeper.
That's right.
But people don't want to talk about it.
Exactly.
So they would rather stay in a unresolvable structure than go through the pain of having a conversation.
That was something T and me talked about today. Why do we call it vulnerability when it's being authentic?
Hmm.
It's being who you actually are.
That's a lovely exchange.
It
If you,
just reveals how we orienting to it.
ah,
Right.
the one that put the words onto what we are supposed to be feeling, and they put the story
That's right.
to the emotion.
Well, there was a word there. We attached the story to it and the feeling to it. I defined the meaning for vulnerability. And yes, when you say vulnerability, we feel like we're being attacked.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, vulnerable means what's the first thing when you think of that's a great exercise. When you think of vulnerability, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Being naked.
Mm, yeah. And see, that's yours. And then it's like, what are you most afraid of being naked?
Oh, I don't mean it literally being naked, but because I don't really care what other people think about me. It's their problem if they have a thought about me. But not being dressed for the situation. That's what I mean
Mm,
about being naked.
dressed,
Not being,
dressed.
not have
So
the tools to do the work.
there you go. I hear a prepared.
Yeah, prepared. Exactly. That's the word.
Mm. So interesting. So vulnerable, like prepared, is connected to vulnerability for you.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
And I feel like
Mine,
when we're doing this, we are preparing ourselves for
yes,
ourselves.
I agree. And so vulnerability, mine vulnerable, I think defense. It's like I have to protect, I have to put the defenses up.
Yeah.
That's what vulnerability is for me. It's like it's a weakness. Now, that's how I created my relationship with that word. So in a sense, I am revealing to you my meaning of that word, and it doesn't have to be yours. But I sure am
And
interested in yours because it helps me see the word fuller.
as we've been doing this, I see my vulnerability as my strength. It's where I got possibilities for growing even stronger. So talking about shit that actually happened, well, it had happened. By talking about it, we can see what can I learn from what had happened. So we take the wisdom out of whatever happened to us and learn from it. So we are more prepared for next time. So it's, how do you explain it? It's actually strength to me. What they
Me,
call
me,
vulnerability.
when I saw it for something else, Heinz, I did too. And and in such a way that it makes such a difference in such a way I didn't think was possible, that we demonstrated here so that we think it's so important that others find theirs. And it's like, again, it's like from an unresolvable structure to a resolvable structure.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the first thing, is like what we're looking for is looking for people's unresolvable structures. And then we help them resolve them. Now, in coaching programs, and something I see here, and not like, but things I've been around with, is as soon as we call it a coaching session, it's like we release the sharks. It's like blood in the water.
What?
I mean, that's an unresolvable structure, people. But when we just allow it and don't put anything more on the breakthroughs than just the breakthroughs. The breakthroughs are breaking through an unresolvable structure to a resolvable one. That's the whole breakthrough. And look, I don't think most people see structure very well. Better
No.
yet, man, like how do I speak that?
Well, we're not aware of it.
Yeah.
We'll see it at a certain level. Like the languaging that I had before was paradigm. And
Mhm.
it's maybe the same thing, but not really, because you can have a paradigm that is in a closed structure and not a creative one. You know, paradigm basically means worldview.
Mm.
So it speaks to the bigger picture, but it doesn't speak doesn't speak to structure really. And I mean, so the reason why I use that or bring that word up is because I was always aware of what people's paradigms were, and I knew when I resonated with theirs and when I didn't. And I knew that the one felt constricted and the other felt expanded. You know, I recognized that in my feeling. But it really wasn't until the course that I got the notion of structure. And then it was only after the course that when we started working with you that, you know, in like this in the mornings, that I really started to grasp it. And it took me a long time. It took me months. And it was only really when you asked me that question that first time about what are your coordinates? And even then I was like, as you know, what the fuck are you talking about? So I think most people really don't, and that's not because I didn't, but it's not part of our languaging, Jess. You know, maybe if you go into engineering, yes, it is, you know, or if you do math or if you do physics. So in the sciences, maybe it's part of the languaging, but it's not part of languaging in human sciences, and that's where it's, you know, equally important. I mean, research never talks about the structure of the research in human sciences. And even in neuroscience, which is medical, you know. And in all my readings, I've never seen any author write about the structure. And they'll talk about the structure of the brain. But in all the theories that they've been in psychology, there's no mention of structure. Which is why I had the thought that maybe I could go and do a PhD. And then then the second thought was, oh my God, no. Go through that academic structure, and no thanks.
A PhD on structure.
Or on change. That's what I want.
But if they don't understand things the way you're doing, you'll get a low grade. That's their structure.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think if somebody had to take it in, it would be well received. But I'm not an academic. I could not be bothered about how you list things, and no.
But now you put it out there. Now this suggestion is there, so maybe an academic will take up and make a PhD about structure.
Which would be amazing.
Yeah, because that would change everything. If people get to see their structure and know that they can work with their structure, well, then they open for those possibilities.
It's a beautiful way of putting it, Hans.
Yeah, because then it's brought into the awareness that there is something you can actually work with, and one structure is always personal. It's based on your life experiences and your emotional, what is called, not stability, but how you are emotionally.
Emotional alignment. Yeah.
Ooh, yeah, that's the word.
Mm.
Oh, nice,
Yeah,
nice.
very nice, Des.
I like that one. Emotional
Mm.
alignment. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So, Allison, this was a phenomenal demonstration. If I replay, if I go back when you were sharing, you provided the information that said my first, like my automatic first one said go like back to PhD was the word, like PhD, right?
Mm.
So it was like normally what we do is we hear that first thing and we either say no to it or we attach right to it.
Mm.
Mm.
And so you can see it's like that starts the structure,
Mm.
what you do with it. But
Mm.
you were aware to be like, oh, look, it just said that. And then you were like, you examined it and said, would I say yes or no to that? And
Mm.
you asked it and then it revealed why. So you got more of the story.
Mm.
Do you see how it was just wanting to reveal itself? We just don't know how to reveal it.
Yes.
And we're
Yes.
looking for all the perfect ways to reveal this jumbled chaos on the inside when the only way to do it is just to release, like let it out. But do you see how that's an unresolvable structure because we're so afraid just to let it out?
Mm.
And that has us all tied up in these knots. Now, what
Mm.
I say about that was like how wonderful you created your imagination to say, well, not that, but what about this? What about this? Do you see the space that you created because of that one urge that you paused on?
Mm. Mm. Yeah, and that's come from this work.
That's right. And so what I say is like that's that is a working in a resolvable structure.
Mm. Mm.
Because you are allowing the power inside you to speak to you to reveal it, and you're not attaching to it. You're just seeing for what it is, the information that's there, and saying, okay, well, I'll take this and I'll put it here. How about here? And you're creating a puzzle.
Mm.
They're just pieces you're putting down on the walk of life.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, that's a good life, right?
It would be a resolvable structure, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the only way to do that is from in here to out there, is to listen to the power that's talking to you and reimagine what you could do,
Mm.
who you could be, how you would do what you always done.
Mm. In a different way.
That's all it is. It's always just different. It's what does that different mean to us? That's the key. That's the awareness.
Yes. And when you do that, my experience of doing that is that it takes so much less energy to be open to what could be there
Mhm.
than to
The-
keep on having to bring it back to what is known, what was there previously.
Mm.
or even just the fight to be right. Like the fighting of it is unresolvable and
Yes.
takes and destroys so much energy
Yeah, it does.
unless the other person doesn't resist you. Then it's only your energy because that's the only thing the other person can do. They can either resist you, right, and fight you back, or they just allow you,
Yeah.
let you to go right by.
Yeah.
You can do the same thing. You can allow the fights to go right by you.
Exactly.
And I think that's what most people want, but they're so attached to do what they've always done.
Yes. And I got caught in that with the conversation with my daughter last night.
Oh, it still happens to you too, huh? You'd think we got it fixed, like aware of it one time and we'd be out of it, right? It's like, oh,
Yeah.
sloppy code that we have here, right? I just
Yes.
recoded it.
And reviewing this now is really, really helpful because it's it's just brought back. I mean, I realized what was happening as it was happening. And thank goodness we're at the point where we can, laugh at each other, but she's still stuck with the frustration, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And yeah, and that's not fair. But reviewing it now is, for me, is what I see so much more clearly is that my fear is there because I don't trust that she is a resolvable structure in herself.
Mm.
And I understand why, but still, it doesn't matter. Her experience is, she's in her experience. I'm not in her experience. And she had said to me very clearly before, she'd said, I'm doing this and this about this. And I want you to know so that you don't have to keep on worrying about the fact that it's not going to happen. And what did I do last night? Told her what she should do. So we could have a bit of a giggle about it, but I know, it wasn't good. Wasn't helpful at all. And disrespectful. Especially because she had given me her, the reassurance that this is where she's got the same understanding that I have, but it's not what she can do right now. So the point of that is just that it was helpful for me again to see just that my fear is around the scarcity as opposed to trusting that she'll have more than enough available to herself. I was thinking the other day, I'll share this about parenting, and I thought, I only had the one child, so I think the experience then is you remember it in a different way to when you have more than one child. But I can remember when she was already, well, probably 6 months old, 7, 8. And one of my friends walked in to visit, and I was carrying Taylor around on my hip. And she said to me, Ellie, I don't think I can imagine you ever without her on your hip now. And we had a giggle, and then she said, it's like you've got a new limb. And I thought, yeah, that's exactly what it's like. So in the beginning, it's like you have this new thing and you're not quite sure how to work with it. And you spend all these years, working and working and working and worrying about whether you're doing enough. And are you teaching them enough? And so that's so much where scarcity comes in, I think, where you can see it with parents. And then all of a sudden, you know, after school, off they go. Now, and so they just rip that limb away. And you've got this huge big hole. Like, what the hell do you do with this hole now? And it takes years and years and years until you realize that it really is fine. You can let it go. It is okay. It's more than okay. And you have something new on the other side, right? A whole new relationship to develop. I better get going. I've got a pile of snow outside on my walkway.
Well,
And I didn't want to go out early this morning because it was still too cold.
Take it slow with the snow. Don't hurry and don't overwork it.
Yes, I will. Thank you, Heinz. I'll enjoy the sun. The sun is out, so that's wonderful. It's really beautiful, as you know. Thank you so much for this morning. Thank you very much, Jessie. That was a really good circling back and bringing to attention.
Yeah. Thank you, Alison. This
thank you, Chi.
Special day today, special call. There was so much so much food for thoughts and for the heart and for I love it. Thank you so much, all.
Yeah.
Have a great day, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks, you all too.
Wonderful day.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.